Hello everybody. You're very welcome to this sales webinar on the Customer Centric Index. It's basically an online survey, a very fast online survey that your customers can do in less than 2 minutes, in some ways less than a minute, that'll really pinpoint what area on the website is either giving them most dissatisfaction, that they're most annoyed with, but it'll also tell you the areas on the website that they're quite happy with, or that there's not a big issue on. So that's the core purpose of this. It's a very fast and a kind of different type of market research. It's not structured in the way traditional surveys are structured, and I'll explain how it's different and how that leads to greater effectiveness, a greater understanding, and getting to the exact needs of what is, dissatisfying, what's really annoying your customers when they come to your website, and where exactly do you need to take action. So that's the purpose of the Customer-Centric Index. At the moment, we're interested in running some free trials for it, which basically no cost involved to try it out, but we're particularly targeting the areas of intranets, government, particularly government local councils. We have a project underway with one government area where we're testing out some local councils with the Customer-Centric Index, and also for universities. We have about 7 or 8 universities at the moment undergoing a project to test out, to create a league table so that we can compare ourselves and see how are we matching up. So I'll talk about the free trials later on, but for now I'll get into basically the presentation itself. Over the years, we've been involved in managing websites, or helping mainly large organizations to manage big websites since 1994, 1995. And our core philosophy is task management, and that people are task focused when they come to a website. And we've identified 13 factors that influence task completion when somebody comes to your website. And we've put them into 3 major groups. The first group is what we call the content factors. The second group, which we'll be coming to in a moment, we call the social factors, or the Web 2.0 factors. And the third group and final group is what we call the information architecture factors. And what we've done for these factors, if we look here, we see up to date. We've created a positive and a negative, because I think it's very important that we measure not just satisfaction, but also dissatisfaction within an environment. And you'll always find some people that say, oh, I'm satisfied with up-to-dateness or whatever, but we also need to find out what percentage of people are dissatisfied. So there's 2 core measures, I think, in customer focus. Those who say they're happy and those who say they're not happy. And if you've got 2 people saying they're happy, but you've got 200 people saying they're unhappy about up-to-dateness, then you've got a problem with up-to-dateness. And sometimes we only measure satisfaction within the environment. So we've created a positive and a negative, basically a satisfaction and a dissatisfaction in what we consider are the core content factors. So we got up-to-dateness, accuracy, completeness, and language. So we've got up-to-date information, out-of-date information, accurate information, inaccurate information, complete information, incomplete information, plain language, full of jargon, corporate speak. So these are what we call the content factors. Things that you really need to know. Are they working? Is your content working for your customer? This next set of factors is what we call the social factors. The social factors equally have a positive and a negative. Right? So the first social factor, contact. Easy to contact, hard to contact. This can be an extremely important factor, particularly in an intranet. And this approach to customer-centric index works just as well within intranets as it does within public websites. We've designed it very, very carefully that it actually works in multiple environments. So participation, easy to participate, give feedback, hard to participate, give feedback. Openness, gives me the facts, transparent. Misleading, not transparent. And recommendations, has ratings, reviews, recommendations, has no ratings, reviews, recommendations. These are what we call the social factors. And finally, we have the information architecture factors. Search, helpful search results, poor search results. Navigation, clear menus and links, confusing menus and links. Layout, simple layout, easy to read. Cluttered layout, hard to read, the negative side, the dissatisfaction. Visual appeal, looks attractive, appealing, looks unattractive, unappealing. And speed, a kind of an overall summation of the information architecture, fast to do things, slow to do things. So these are what we consider the 13 core factors that influence success on a website, and we've created a positive and a negative statement for each one of those. Then what we do is we create a very, well, simple in a certain way, but a simple and fast to do survey, which says to people, please choose the 3 factors. So what we do is we present the 26 factors, and we're just showing you a sample of the presentation here, in randomized order. Right, and there's a very specific reason. A lot of traditional survey companies will tell you this is a crazy approach, it won't work. Well, let me tell you, we've got 60,000 people in 12 countries that prove that this approach works. It's unique, it's different, it's a very different approach to survey design. We've discovered it over a 6 or 7 year intensive process in research, and initially discovered it actually by accident. But the approach basically allows the person to choose the 3 most important things that they really care about, either positively or negatively. So they have to choose 3, 2, 1. Choose are they 3 positive statements or negative statements? That's up to them. But they've got this list of 26 randomly presented, and they must choose the 3 things that they really care about in relation to their actual experience on the website. So they have to score 3, 2, 1. This is the simple, and you know, in this format you can do it in a minute, 2 minutes maximum. It's really fast, it's really simple, but wait until you see the sort of data that actually comes out of it. We also have a few category questions which allow us to segment the data. Now, we don't have to have these category questions, but this is an example of a category question for universities, where there's standard alumnus, alumni, current student, faculty person or staff member, possible future student. And this allows us then, as we'll see later, to segment the data. So you might have a couple of what we call category questions. But even if you have 2 or 3 category questions like this and the customer-centric index, you're still talking about a 2-minute survey. It's really, really fast. And in this age of time being extremely precious, that's a definite advantage for it. So we got basically the core survey, the customer-centric index with the 26 factors, 3, 2, 1, and then we've got the category questions. And we do this using SurveyMonkey. You could use most survey tools, but the intricacy is you need to have a voting-based system. So some survey environments don't allow for that. So this, you know, the survey tool, relatively standard, right? Here's what happens with the results. This is an example of an entity, an organization that did this. So after the voting occurred, people had to vote 3, 2, 1. What you see here is what we call the voting spread. And as you can see, the red is the negative voting, and the blue is the positive voting. And you can see immediately, oh, there's much more negative voting than positive voting. And you can really see that navigation and search are big in the negative, and up-to-dateness is big in the negative. But that basically visual appeal is not that important. And that's either negatively or positively. And that's an interesting thing. I was talking to somebody, a web manager there recently, and I was saying there's constant internal pressure to change the visual appeal. Oh, we have to make the website looks boring, etc. But that customers, as they found, are never really as keen or as interested in the big change in the visual appeal as the web team has, or the marketing people, or the communicators, or etc. Everybody internally changed the design. And you know why that often happens? It's not because of a focus on the customer, it's a focus of the internal organizational ego and boredom with the design. Well, let me tell you something, you get paid to be bored, right? Don't be changing your design just because you're bored, or your boss is bored, or your boss's boss is bored, because the customer rarely wants these changes nearly as much as the internal pressures do. And what this says is the customer wants you to fix the search. And of course, fixing the search, that's not sexy, that's not cool. You can't get an ad agency in for that, or a graphic design agency in for that, and choose lovely colors and stuff like that. That's real roll up your sleeves, get your hand dirty sort of work. And unfortunately, most organizations don't want to do that sort of work. And this sort of data we see coming through again and again and again, showing us that fix the search, fix the navigation, and get rid of the crap. Basically, that's what this slide is telling us to do. This is another way of presenting it. This is the core table of the customer-centric index. And here we've got the positive vote and the negative vote. So this is showing, yeah, we got 4% positive, but we got 12% negative of the actual vote coming through. Search 2% positive and 22% in this environment negative. Now, this particular customer-centric index, it was only 28%. That's a pretty low one. About 26% is, I think, the lowest we've ever got, and 80% or 84% is the highest we've ever got. So there's quite a range in the customer-centric indexes that we've done. So here you can see the positive vote and the negative vote, and this is what we call, in a way, the take action column, right? So how is that calculated? Well, that's basically a factor. It's a formula based on the size of the negative vote and the gap between the negative and the positive vote, and it's expressed as 100%. So this is basically saying, if you had 100 hours of time, what does your customer really want you to spend that time on? And the customer is saying, please spend 35 of those hours on fixing the search. Spend another 20 hours on those confusing menus and links, make them simpler. And then spend 17 hours basically getting rid of the old and the out-of-date content. And in this particular, it's really, really clear. The data is absolutely crystal clear. That's what people care about. And the other stuff, not so important to these top three things: search, navigation, and basically up-to-dateness, right? This is another way of looking at the data. This is expressing it from where to invest resources. So most of the negative vote is coming in the information architecture area, 68% of the vote in this particular example. The content area gets 28% of the vote, and the social area only gets 4%. And we find this broadly coming up again and again and again when we do customer-centric indexes. The social area is the Web 2.0 area, much more prized by the web teams than it is by the customers. What the customers are saying right now is fix the basics. Look, lads, they're saying to you, your search doesn't work, your links are horrible, will you please get the basics right? But nobody seems to work on the basics, do they? Nobody cares about the basics in most organizations, unfortunately. They want to do wikis or blogs or personalization, anything but do the basic work within the website. And this data gives you the ammunition to really say, this is what our customer really cares about. This is what's annoying them. Okay, the next slide is another way of presenting this particular data. It says, where's the action? Action is on search, where to take action priorities, search, navigation, and up-to-dateness. So basically, from a very quick, fast survey, you get very powerful data. How many people need to do this? We find at least 100 people, 200 if at all possible, and 400 we would definitely aim for to give good, solid statistical data. But it's simple, it's quick, but it gives you a very powerful sense of what the customer really cares about, what's really annoying them on the website, and what's not annoying them on the website. Okay, that basically is the core explanation. This is a kind of the category question analysis. Do you remember earlier we had these category questions which allowed us to ask, are you alumni, students, staff, considering, or other? So if you've asked that type of question, then you can slice the data up and show, oh, this is what really matters to students, this is what really matters to staff, this is what really matters to considering. So this is another example using the category questions. So here we have alumni. Wow, slow to do things. That's a huge issue for the alumni in this environment. So you're able to track and see, are there particular needs of your audience segments that are different, so to speak. So we look at students. It's slow to do things as well. So we're getting the same basic patterns, right? We look at staff. In this, it's slow to do things in this particular one. So there's a lot of consensus actually coming through. And as we can see, the vast majority of the scoring in this environment is in the information architecture space. We look at those considering. It's not slow to do things. It's slightly different. Confusing menus and links. Layout is important in this particular environment. And actually in this environment, the visual appeal is important for entities considering. This was one of the first times we actually came across this. Okay, that's basically your explanation of a single customer-centric index. What happens if we get a table together, if we get a group of universities or a group of intranets? And this is what we're doing a set of free trials on at the moment, where we're seeking to bring together a bunch of council websites or city websites. And we have some at the moment. I can't give you the exact data because it's a kind of a private study, but we definitely have some city councils at the moment. We have about 10 universities, mainly in America, but some in Europe, and we have about 3 to 4 intranets, some very large organizations in the intranets, but again, I can't say who is using it because it's still semi-private. But if you are interested in becoming part of a league in the intranet space, or in the city council or local council space, or in the university space, please get in touch with us after this. So how does the league actually work? So here's how it works. Nobody sees each other, so to speak, so no names are used. So it's anonymous within the environment. So the data you get says you got your customer-centric index was 74%. The lowest one in this particular group was 33%, and the highest was 76%. So you were second out of 10. You're second out of 10 in this particular league, and you had 3,500 voters who voted in customers or people who voted in this particular survey. So then if we have the common segments in the league, the categories, alumnus, current student, faculty, staff, and considering, it says, well, actually for alumni or alumnus, you didn't have enough people because we usually have a cut-off point of a minimum of 50. So they only had 38 before the data becomes useful. But for current students, your customer-centric index was 56%, the lowest was 50, and the highest was 65%. And for this, you weren't doing that great. You were 4th out of 5. So there was only 5 people who qualified, so to speak, for the current student analysis. So only 5 people out of the 10 had more than 50 current students responding. Faculty and staff, your customer-centric index was 49%, and what we often find is basically that when we're looking at intranets or for faculty and staff, that basically the customer-centric index tends to be significantly lower than for customers. And the reason is generally that the intranets are not well as managed and haven't got as good resources going forward, right? So this is a look at the league table. This slide looks a bit busy, but it does have a logic. We'll explain its logic here now. So what it has, it shows the 13 basic factors, and the first one is up-to-dateness. So for this particular entity, the star is where they are on the chart of the customer-centric index for up-to-dateness. The blue is where the average is, and the green dots are where its peers, its other peers in its group are appearing. So we can see it's doing very well for up-to-dateness. It's almost up at the top, and it's certainly well above average in this environment. For accuracy, it's doing even better. But if we look down and we see visual appeal, it's not quite as good. But it's above average. So this particular entity is doing very well for this customer-centric index. It's above average for every single factor, and it's ahead of most of its peers for every single factor. So this is another way of presenting the league sort of data coming through, which allows you to see how are you performing against your peers, if those are universities or council websites or other intranets. And we're certainly interested in exploring other league tables over time. So if you think that you know of a group, or perhaps there's a group of companies or sub-sites within your organization that you might like to create a league table for, please have a chat to us about that. So this is a kind of early, it's some design work. Sorry, I thought I got rid of that design work is not ready actually to show. I thought I'd deleted that particular design work. This is another presentation of the results from the league table point of view. So it's showing for up-to-dateness, your CCI is 80%, the lowest one was 26, the highest one is 86%, and you're second. So you can basically see how you're performing without anybody being exposed, so to speak, any university's name or any intranet's name or local council's name being actually exposed. So you get very powerful and actionable data, so you can really know it's the search or it's the confusing menus and links that are causing the most problem. So this, you can segment the data with the current students. Yours is 55, the lowest is 38, the highest is 65. Faculty and staff. So if we get these category questions and we get into this league and we get common category questions that each entity within the league use, then we can get nice segmentation within each category and show for current students you're performing very well against your peers, but for those considering you're not performing so well. So basically that's a quick synopsis of what the customer-centric index is about. It's a very quick online survey, uniquely structured, very, very different from all other surveys that you're going to come across. It's really focused on the, really understanding what it is that the customer cares most about, what is annoying them most, and trying to structure in a way that gives you data that says this is where your customer is having a lot of pain, but equally this is an area where your customer is not having a lot of pain.